as a law firm. We look at AI as part of our day-to-day thinking and decision-making, not just as loads of tools or products to make us more efficient and as a way to get rid of a load of people. We look at using it to deliver better results and value to our clients by adding that intuition and human element or connection to our client relationships, to which AI cannot currently deliver, and which aligns very nicely with our ambition to be the most human law firm.
Hi, I'm Belden Menkus. Welcome to the Purposeful Strategist, the podcast that shifts the conversation about purpose and strategy from what organizations should do to what business leaders are doing and what they've learned along the way. My guest today is Helen Drayton, Chief Executive Officer of Penningtons Manches Cooper, a leading UK and international law firm known for combining commercial strength with a deeply human approach to practice. With roots dating back over 300 years and offices across the UK, Europe, and Asia, Penningtons Manches Cooper advises clients ranging from global corporates to private individuals. A former corporate lawyer specializing in mergers and acquisition, Helen rose through the ranks to become CEO in 2022. I'm curious to learn how she's leading PMC through a period of purposeful growth and cultural renewal. Helen, welcome to the Purposeful Strategist.
Good morning. Hi, Belden. Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the podcast. So, Penningtons Manches Cooper, a real long history in the legal sector. Can you give us a picture where the firm is today? Size, key practice areas, kinds of clients. And also, if you don't mind, tell us just a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. So Penningtons Manches Cooper, as you say, has got a history that it can trace back to over 300 years now. And where we are today as a firm, having joined PMC 13 years ago, I joined the Cambridge office. The size of the firm at that point was around 33 million. And Cambridge had claimed the North in that sense. And the following year, we did the Manches merger, which took us through the 50 million benchmark in terms of revenue. And that gave us our Thames Valley platform in Reading and Oxford, as well as a stronger base in London. And then 6 years ago, we merged with Thomas Cooper, an international shipping firm with offices overseas in Singapore, Piraeus, Paris, and Madrid. And also in 2019, we opened our Birmingham office. So our UK platform is now 7 offices, and we have 5 international offices now because we opened a hub in Antibes just over a year ago now in November 24 to really, again, build on that shipping and yachting expertise that we've had. So we are now, as a firm, in our FY25 numbers at about 120 million, which puts us just outside the top 50. But we're a full-service law firm, and we've always been pretty much that as a heritage on the Pennington side, and we've built through those core areas and those core divisions through our mergers, adding the shipping expertise and the international piece, particularly with Thomas Cooper 6 years ago now. So that's where we were when I started, and that's where we are today in terms of our most recent financial performance.
Right. And just a bit about you, kind of where you're from, how'd you get into the law?
Yeah, I didn't set out to be a lawyer. I certainly didn't set out to be a CEO. My journey into law came from an interest. I did a law A-level. I didn't really know what to do with my A-levels. I was quite good academically, and law suited me as an A-level subject. And that piqued my interest to go off and do that at university. Again, not to set out to be a lawyer. And I couldn't get a training contract like a lot of people. I went to an old poly, Nottingham Trent University as it is now. And I didn't have any kind of family connections or those sort of relationships to utilise to get into a more sort of formal legal career. And I made a decision not to go to law school and fund that myself without having a training contract. So I took some time to try and really get one of those under my belt or secured so that I could go off to law school with confidence of knowing I had that at the end of it. So I took a year out and I worked at a firm as a family court clerk. And that really opened my eyes to all sorts of things. My role as a family court clerk was to go to court every day and sit behind the barristers and take notes in the care proceedings. That was a really good experience for me in terms of working in an office, working in a legal environment. And that absolutely helped me get my training contract at Hewittson's, which is now part of HCR. So I fell into corporate. I hated corporate as a subject on the legal practice course. I couldn't make sense of it. It just didn't click for me at all. But then when I did my training contract, I loved it, and I worked with a really sound group of partners and people. I got promoted to partner at Hewittson's, and I joined Penningtons, as I say, 13 years ago, just as a corporate partner, not looking for any kind of ambitions in terms of management. But as the firm grew, I got given some opportunities to get more involved in management, which I took, which led me to be identified as an emerging leader. I did a lot of work on the people side. I used to like doing the recruitment and so just basically helping out on things that I could help the firm deliver. And when the Thomas Cooper merger came along, it meant that one division was far too big for one person to be effectively running. So I became the head of the division that led corporate, commercial IPIT, pensions, immigration, tax, banking. And then when David Rain, who was the firm's CEO for 14 years, was looking to step down first to enable a new CEO to have the opportunity to appoint people that they're going to be working with. The way we're structured, the CEO is an elected role, and then the CEO appoints basically everybody else that they're going to be working with alongside in that leadership team. So I remember sitting down and having lunch with David when he said, what do you think about taking on the role as CEO? And I was like, yeah, of course I could do that. And came home and was a bit of a rabbit in the headlights thinking, oh my goodness, because I'd never seen myself as the number one in terms of that most senior position. I'd always seen myself as being alongside or a number two or a very good team player and supporter. But David spent a bit of time with me talking to me about it, because I remember saying to him, I don't even know what you do day in, day out. What is your day like? And I can appreciate now why he perhaps struggled to articulate to me what his day was like, because absolutely no day is the same. So David and I spent some time together and I thought, actually, no, I can do this. And more importantly, I want to do it. So I kind of became a, if you like, sort of CEO-elect. David was very good with supporting me, but letting me be more front and centre during that transition period. And I took over, say, formally on the 1st of October 2022, and I've just been re-elected for my second term. So yes, not set out to do any of that, but here I am.
Oh, well, brilliant. A couple of things I really love in that story. One is the way in which your career, actually, like many, it didn't really follow a completely straight path. The model of, well, just figure out what you want to do and then go after it sort of didn't apply. You didn't end up in the training contract you wanted right away. We have a daughter who herself is sort of beginning to figure out how she makes a transition into the world of employment. And I keep telling her it's not necessarily straightforward. Don't expect it to all line up. Get involved in something, see how it goes, see what actually kind of works for you.
Yeah, I do a talk to our VAC schemers, vacation schemes that run throughout the year with the firm. And I absolutely reassure the participants that we have come in that you don't have to have it all mapped out. You don't have to have it nailed on in terms of a plan. I didn't get my A-level grades to get my first choice of university. So I had to do a resit. And ironically, the resit I had to do was my law A-level, which I thought was my strongest subject. But I retook it. I got my better grade and I did another A-level in that year to try and balance out the fact I'd done a resit. So I like to believe that things will work themselves out. I always say to the students, I know that's really easy for somebody like me to say when I'm sat where I am today, when you're sitting there as a 21-year-old and trying so hard to have it all kind of have a bit of certainty about what's coming next. The systems that we have, there is a lot of pressure put on people to have a plan and to stick to it. And if it doesn't happen, it's all not negative, but it just adds another level of pressure, which isn't healthy. So I do try and reassure people that if you do what you enjoy and don't do what you think people expect you or you think people want you to do, you stick with it. I think resilience is definitely the characteristic that I have as a personality, which has stood me in good stead in getting where I am today.
You've taken us up to sort of becoming the CEO. When you stepped into that role, what kind of culture were you looking to build or rebuild? Where did this sort of most human law firm come from? And was that with you when you came in? How did all that develop?
We genuinely do value and believe in our culture and treasure it. And the objective to be the most human law firm came out of a project that David led back in, I think it was like 2020. So I probably was on the outskirts of being involved in that sort of management piece at that point. But we launched a project internally called Project Alaska. Basically, we had a lot of positivity about what we stood for as a business, what we're aiming to be, our people and our culture, what our clients valued and all of those things, but we had trouble articulating it consistently in a way that we could articulate that internally and externally with more clarity. So we worked with an organisation called the Foundation, who did a lot of work in terms of lots of internal surveys of our people about what they thought the firm's vision was and what our values were, in a way that we could articulate those in writing. You know what lawyers like, they like to be able to distill it into words in a nice, sort of clear and concise way. So Project Alaska helped us deliver that vision to want to help people effectively deliver the best real world outcomes for whatever their legal solutions they're looking for. And we identified 5 values. We care, to be curious and grounded, stronger as one, to be constructively challenging and proactively evolving. And if we adopted those 5 values with that vision, the outcome we felt we would achieve would be the most human law firm. We've carried that forward into our strategy. So when I stepped into the CEO role in 22, we spent a year effectively working as a new leadership team to revitalise and relaunch our strategy, which we did just over 2 years ago now. And we again built on that being the most human law firm. And to help us with that, we did some work with a business called Lamp House, who did some client listening for us and also did some listening internally. The consistent feedback from both the clients and our people was that having that ambition to be the most human law firm really resonated with them. And that was genuinely seen as a bit of a USP for us as a law firm, you know, certainly with clients when they've got their choice of legal providers. Not only did they obviously, thankfully, value the legal work we were delivering for them, they enjoyed working with us as people. So we've kept that at the heart of our new strategy as well. So I can't take the credit for it, but we are continuing with that around our people and our culture piece, that ambition to be the most human law firm that we can be.
And it sounds like, from what you said, that even though you didn't come up with that as you came in and began to create your team, you had to reinterrogate, reimagine, whatever. You had to kind of refresh. So that's great. We still agree with that most human law firm. But what does that mean now? How did that work?
We've wanted to make sure that we value the human contribution and the human relationship. And I think so much of what we hear in the press, in the world today, is all about trust. And I think you can only get really good trust if there is that human element and there is that authenticity and openness. I think those sorts of values very much embrace us as a team, certainly me as an individual. And that's what we aspire to create with our clients. And we've worked incredibly hard as a business in terms of developing further our culture with our well-being initiatives, you know, really trying to understand what our people value in terms of that support that we can give them. And that, again, resonates really well with our clients when they can see how much we value our people. And it's not just in terms of those well-being initiatives. We've spent a lot of time as part of the new strategy really looking at the training that we give our people. So we've launched, you know, some new PMC academies for our fee earners, and that hasn't stopped with the fee earners. We've invested in our partners in the training that we've given them in terms of very much with their business development, in terms of helping them drive their revenue even higher. All of the platforms and initiatives that we have as a business to support our people have helped us maintain and strengthen our culture. And that, as I say, is being recognised by our clients with the feedback that we get from them. Not only are we providing excellent client service, you know, we've just had our Chambers and our Legal 500 rankings. I'm really proud of what we've achieved there and continue to achieve, and being seen in the lawyer top 50 as a heavy hitter in terms of our litigation practice and our lawyers there. You know, so it's all coming together, which we know all those strands do hopefully achieve that positive outcome. Our people sort of run through our strategy from top to bottom, side to side, because we know our people are our most valuable asset. We have to get that as right as we can do, and we never lose sight of our culture in terms of our business ambitions. We are, of course, a business, but we recognise our people are key in delivering that business. So they run through everything we do, so we have to make sure that they are happy for the business to be successful.
Can I just probe on a couple of things sort of related to that, and particularly around the strategy? So at least as I've understood the history, the firm's grown very successfully through mergers, through acquisitions, which, as I'm sure you know, not every law firm that acquires another firm then gets the joy they anticipate from that. But it seems like you have. What's the strategic focus now? Is it more organic growth, more offices, international expansion, further? What's the focus around that?
When we launched the strategy 2 years ago, we very much focused on not so much financial goals, but impact goals, where if we got the foundations right, whether that's how we go to market together, how we present ourselves as a firm, being collaborative, being innovative, that those financial outcomes would take care of themselves. And I'm delighted that we had a very good FY25 in terms of financials. So that original strategy is starting to work. Where we're really shifting our focus now is on that revenue growth and how we achieve that. We met as a partnership in June to sort of take stock of like 18 months into the 3-year strategy, how it was all going, and we were able to point to some obviously very positive successes. But now it's really about focusing on that revenue growth. As you say, we can be proud of the mergers we've done in the past. I can talk confidently about why I think we've done those mergers well, so we can be confident in looking at those opportunities again. But as anybody will tell you, you can want to do a merger all you like, but they're very hard. Just because you want it, it doesn't happen. So that's absolutely something that we keep an eye on in terms of opportunities. But the organic growth is the key focus for us. When we did the Thomas Cooper merger, we were very much conscious from a Penningtons Manches side to tick the Brexit box at the time. That's what everybody was talking about, and having a European base, which the Piraeus, Paris and Madrid offices gave us. But in terms of a real opportunity for growth, Singapore was obviously a new area for us to look at, and that again will be a key focus for that strategic growth. So we've been testing the ambition of the partnership, which we talked about in June on our partner day, and what we want to aim for 2030. And it's what we do next that is key. So we're starting to move our 3-year plan to a 5-year plan and spending time as a team and therefore with the partnership to really drive that ambition. And we're starting to map it out now. So watch this space.
As you may know, we've been doing some research on looking at how law firms are approaching the decision-making around their use of AI, not the sort of specific case studies. Lots of people are doing that. So I'm just curious, at PMC, how are you using AI? And I'll use that as a very broad term to pick up a lot of technologies, perhaps. Obviously, all that's reshaping the profession. So in the midst of that, how do you keep your purpose, this sense of humanity, at the core of the strategy, rather than letting efficiencies sort of drive everything else out?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that AI came on the scene very much driving efficiencies and automation. I think it's always quite interesting when we remind people internally how long we have been using AI as a tool, obviously in very specific ways. We use, for example, a real estate product called Avail, which scrapes data from land registry in terms of title information. And it just means instead of having to trawl through all of the title documents in a very manual way, Avail will scrape all of that data and pop it into a user-friendly report that you can then take forward as you need to. So those efficiencies will continue to be there. And obviously we're looking at the right AI tools for us in terms of delivering that quality work. But as you say, it's not just about efficiencies. I think AI is moving forward as a tool in its wider sense. And I think back to David, when he was CEO, he was passionate about sustainability. And he drove the firm in its decision-making to always have sustainability at the heart of any decision that we were taking, whether that was internally as a business or looking to support clients with their own sustainability ambitions. And we've continued to build on that as a business. But for me, AI very much falls into that. We can't ignore AI. AI will be part of every firm's strategy one way or another. But for us, it's very much looking about how it runs through our business, not alongside it in terms of specific tools for specific practice areas to automate. Or I think AI is going to become even more relevant for running of a business than just the delivery of a legal service. As a law firm, we look at AI as part of our day-to-day thinking and decision-making, not just as loads of tools or products to make us more efficient and as a way to get rid of a load of people. We look at using it to deliver better results and value to our clients by adding that intuition and human element or connection to our client relationships, to which AI cannot currently deliver, and which aligns very nicely with our ambition to be the most human law firm.
Yeah. One other question, sort of focusing a little bit kind of out into the market. What are the biggest shifts you're seeing in what clients expect from their legal partners? Maybe driven by AI, maybe driven by lots of other things.
Definitely something that we're hearing much louder now is what clients value. I think lawyers traditionally think they know what clients want and want to deliver that because they've got the confidence that they know what they're doing, they know what expertise they can bring, what problems they can solve. Whereas we've been spending a lot of time of really sort of listening to what our clients value rather than thinking what we think they value. It's actually asking them, making sure we don't lose that as a perspective in our thinking. I think that's what drives most clients mad or disappointment, is where we're missing the opportunity to understand what they value and delivering that, rather than us thinking we know what they need, this is what you need, and this is what we're going to deliver. That, of course, needs to be balanced by part of our role is to help them recognize what they need. So it's not just a case of letting them dictate in that, if there are other things that they need to appreciate. But we did 4 smaller conferences with our partners where we invited clients along to tell us what they liked about working with us and what they didn't like about working with us. And again, it was very interesting, particularly when it came to pricing. There's a fear of, we can't charge that, or, we're competing against somebody else and we're seen as expensive. That fear that you then perpetuate. But what was very interesting about the clients that came to our conferences is that they never once sort of said to us, oh, you're too expensive. None of them said, oh, we would use you more if you were cheaper. So that confidence it gave the partners to say it's not about pricing, it's about understanding what they value. They're very happy to pay whatever it is that they pay if they value it. And to understand what they value, you have to understand them. One particular client valued being able to speak to the lawyer 24/7. And they were prepared to pay for that because that's what they valued. They valued that access, that ultimate access. And other clients just want absolute transparency. They want to have a clear pricing structure that they can be certain about. So again, it's all understanding what clients value. With the advent of AI and efficiencies and, is this finally the end of the hourly rate? All of that sort of talks more to value pricing, and that again goes to understanding what clients value. I think that's where a lot of people are now.
Coming back to your own story, you've kind of came into the law in a slightly different way. Has that experience shaped your own approach and PMC's approach around social mobility, inclusion, diversity?
Yeah, I think going back to David's, if you asked him what he wanted his legacy to be as a CEO, it would be very much the sustainability legacy that he's created. And we're continuing with our SBTIs and our net zero pledge by 2040. So we'll continue to build on those. But for me, when I was thinking about what my legacy would be, which still feels a bit odd to talk about, but then I have to remember I have been doing this for 3 years now, it is very much on that social mobility D&I piece, because as you say, it's something that I have experienced personally. I was the first one in my family to go to university. My mum was a nurse. My dad worked in the newsagents. So the opportunities that I have and I have taken, I think really helps me in terms of my social mobility, and therefore the firm's social mobility agenda on that very specific inclusion piece, but more widely. And it was already there. We have a Penclusion initiative, which is all our wellbeing, and we have various committees to represent whether it's race and faith, age, disability, social mobility. And I'm part of the social mobility committee. For us as a firm, it's not about having boxes to tick in terms of numbers. They have to be the best people. It's about creating the opportunities and making sure we give access to those opportunities to as many people as we can, wherever they come from, whatever their background is in every sense. I'm pleased that once we give those opportunities to that wider talent pool, that the best people will come through those. We're not too bad in terms of some of our diversity stats, but we could always do better. One of the things I'm pleased about is our gender balance on our leadership team. It's me in the CEO role, Sophia in the finance role, Rachel in the BD role, and 2 of our 4 heads of division are female. So we're getting some things right, because all the stats show you that if you have the broadest talent pool, businesses will be the most successful. If you only focus on a very narrow talent pool and you cut off that wider talent, then you're not going to thrive. And that's what we want to do.
As you describe it there, it's just good business sense. It's just good business practice to get the widest possible set of people you can attract to what you're trying to do, to be able to do it well. Yeah. But for you, what does good leadership look like in the specific partnership model, at least that most firms have?
Yeah, it's a funny old model, isn't it? The partnership model. We always say to clients we wouldn't recommend it, but here we are, and we're still doing it as a profession. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because ultimately, I am the CEO. I sit at the top in that responsibility and accountability sense, but we are a partnership. We are all in it together. We're all accountable to each other, and we deliver success together. What I think is good leadership is confidence. It's the trust. And for me, that authenticity and being honest with people so that you can bring them along with you in a consultative, collaborative way, even if they don't perhaps agree with what you're trying to do. If you're authentic and you take the time to talk about what you're doing and why you're doing it, whilst they might not buy into it, they can at least understand and appreciate and value having been consulted. I'm very accessible. I would hope that everybody would say if they wanted to any time with me, they could very easily get that. I don't sit in an ivory tower with a gatekeeper or two, keeping me out of the day-to-day or away from those conversations. I'm very authentic. I don't sort of leave the office and become a completely different person. I am who I am. And I think they trust that. I think they trust my honesty and my integrity. And they've seen the team that I've built around me. I will never be the smartest person in the room, and I shouldn't be, but I've got a really strong team around me. And I think that the success of the strategy so far and where we are now as a business and where we're aiming to be, I think the partners can trust and see that. So I think the other thing I think is good leadership is talking with confidence about, I suppose, the wider market and what's going on. One of the great things about being a CEO is the relationships you build with your peers. So I think with having conversations with other managing partners and CEOs from all parts of the sector, whatever, big, large, medium, there's so much that you can take on board and take back that, again, I think is incredibly valued. And again, I think that shows good leadership in that you have those opportunities to have those conversations and take those back into the business and share. But yeah, so having built that trust, I think that's an incredibly good leadership quality. And I think, again, the resilience. I'm always very mindful that whatever there is going on in the world and whatever gets thrown up, it's being confident that we'll deal with it. And we're coming into our last year of our 3-year strategy, but it's what we do next. That's kind of my phrase at the moment, is like whatever happens, it's what's next that is exciting. So maybe just watch this space.
Helen, that's such a great message. That really is. That's such a great way to sort of think about this incredibly chaotic world we're in. Maybe sort of a good note to end on. It's really been exciting and interesting to hear both your story and kind of where you see PMC and, as you say, where next.
Thank you, Belden.
So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Purposeful Strategist. In addition to being available on our website, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, please do follow us and leave us a 5-star review. It helps others find the podcast. Thanks again, and join us soon for the next episode of The Purposeful Strategist.